Get real advice from renowned experts and entrepreneurs on today's business leaders. Here's your host, Gabe Arnold.
All right, on today's show, I have Brandon Fong, and he's the host of the Seven Figure Millennial podcast. He's going to also talk to us about the magic connection method, which I'm very excited about. And of course, we're going to start out with the most important part, which is learning about your entrepreneurial journey. So, Brandon, welcome to the show, and I'm really glad to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, Gabe. Super pumped to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm always curious and always like to learn. When did you first realize that you were an entrepreneur?
I love this question. I love that you start here. So I had to do some thinking because there was the conscious awareness of me becoming an entrepreneur. And then there was like me being a kid, not even realizing I was doing entrepreneurial things. So the me being a kid, not even knowing I was doing entrepreneurial things is I saw all the kids and they did lemonade stands. And I think I was about 5 at the time. And I really liked rocks. I don't know why, but like, I don't know if you remember those, like, I think they were called like rock tumblers. It was like you would put these unpolished rocks and it would make this terrible grinding noise and it would create this polished rock. So I was like, all the kids are doing lemonade stands. I want to do something different. So I did a rock stand that was about age 5. It was just like a little thing at the end of our driveway. And I have a picture I found recently. It was a picture of me sitting in front with a rock stand. It said Brandon and Jim's rock stand. He was my next door neighbor. And my mom has a little handwritten note next to it that says Brandon's first $2.45. So that was the first entrepreneurial thing. But more of the conscious awareness of me becoming an entrepreneur starts more about middle school. And when I was in middle school, my least favorite part of the school day was lunch. And if the reason why is because I would go, the school bell would ring. If you can imagine when you're in middle school, if you're watching or listening to this, you kind of picture your middle school, and you kind of, if you looked at my middle school, you'd see little nerdy Brandon hanging up behind everyone else. So if you're watching the live stream, you can see this picture I'm holding up. If you're not, I'll describe it. I have this Bugs Bunny gap in my teeth, this kind of nerdy looking glasses. And so I would kind of lag behind everybody going to lunch. And you may be thinking, why the heck would any 6th grader want to procrastinate on the one time when you get to escape the classroom and hang out with your friends? And the reason why is because I would go through the lunch checkout line. I'd have my plastic tray with whatever garbage was, on sale for the day. And then I'd type in my student ID, and then up on the screen, it would show the words Brandon Fong, $0.00. And the reason why I showed that is because I qualified for the free lunch program at school. And I was just so embarrassed. Like some days I would hide out in the bathroom extra long so that there was no line and I could go through. My friends didn't see it. If my friends were around, I would try to make some funny joke and do something on the side so that they wouldn't look at the screen. And I just hated that. And I realized then, though, because I have incredible parents and they kind of helped, just provided me with everything that, maybe the finances weren't there. But what they taught me is that if you want to be successful, it's not about having resources, it's about learning how to be resourceful. And one of the things my parents taught me from a very early age was the power of learning how to connect with people. And so they would let me skip school when I was 16, 17 years old and go to these networking events. And so I would be this 16-year-old, trying to figure, when you go to prom and you're trying to figure out how to tie a tie for the first time and like that kind of stuff. So whatever, kind of clothes I had on then, just networking and meeting with people. And I, that's been an incredible part of my story. And also that's when it led into, when you said, when I realized I was an entrepreneur, when I was that age, that was kind of where the real entrepreneurship started kicking in, is because I had to compete at a international business plan competition. And I didn't have the money to raise for it. And so I ended up my parents connecting me with somebody, and they helped me to fundraise for the trip. And so that was me learning how to fundraise and get funding and be resourceful. So I can dive further into the connection, but to answer your question, that's definitely when I realized I was an entrepreneur, is when I just knew I had to figure things out and realized that resourcefulness was the true key there.
That's a great description. And honestly, I know all the other entrepreneurs I've had on the show, we've done well over 100 episodes now, which is crazy and it's a lot of fun. But I don't know if a lot of them, or hardly any of them, have ever labeled it as resourcefulness. But that's definitely, you're right. Like that's definitely entrepreneurship, because it's figuring out how to win when there's no reason you should.
Right.
And that's definitely an amazing way of looking at it.
I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's like if I wanted to figure out how, like these glasses, kids used to make fun of me for those glasses. If I wanted contacts, I had to figure out how to pay for contacts. And like, I hated it at the time, but like now I look back at it, it's like, man, if I hadn't went through that, if I hadn't gone through that, and if I wasn't in those situations having to figure out things when I didn't have the resources, it wouldn't have pushed me down this path I'm on today, which I'm insanely grateful for. So
Yeah. And it's definitely, the resourcefulness is huge. And then I think the underlying part that I'm hearing about too is that you, in a healthy way, like developed a thick skin of being able to, figure it out and, go out and ask for money or go fundraise. Or I think getting over like the fear of rejection and the fear of failure is a huge part too. And that ties right into resourcefulness for me too, of like, you've got to be able to come up with great plans, and you've got to be willing to realize that they could all, not work, and you have to keep trying, and there's going to be people watching or not watching sometimes, and you still have to be able to show up and figure it out for yourself, because there's nobody, we grew up very similarly, and there was nobody handing you money. So you had to go figure it out when
and I give so much tribute to my parents, because like I grew up in if I were to be a restaurant owner, I think I'd be like a 5th generation restaurant owner. Could be completely wrong on the math there, but like I grew up, my dad owned a restaurant. I was the little kid in the background that was supposed to be quiet, and like it was kind of like a food court. So like if you were a customer looking up, you might see a hand, kind of, because like I wasn't tall enough, you might see a hand pop up and kind of like get some Coke or something like from the dispenser, and then quietly go into the corner. So like I saw my dad creating systems from a very early age, and it was just something that kind of sunk into me. And one of the other things my dad taught me from a very early age is that the worst thing that somebody can say to you is no. And I think societally we hate hearing no, but like my dad taught me that from when I was little, is just learning how to ask. And like, if you can be okay with the fact that they say no, there's really not much that can damage you if you like come to terms with that at an early age. So again, just so grateful for all that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you mentioned that you were getting into these masterminds or networking groups as a teenager. And I remember being a young entrepreneur and at that age too, of like, you're sure you know a lot, and then you learn what you don't know, and then you go through all these progressions, and you get to hang in the room with the really experienced people if you're willing to put in the time and learn all that. So what was that like, and where did that lead you as far as like being in those rooms with more experienced or at least older entrepreneurs?
Yeah, you know what, it taught me, I think as entrepreneurs, we have lots of issues asking for help. Like some entrepreneurs just hate asking for help. And I think that by nature of me being 16 and like everybody understood that I was the youngest person in the room, that people were so willing to contribute to me and help me. And I think, our mutual connection, Jules, has this thing that she's been saying lately that I think is really true, is that your capacity to give as an entrepreneur is inhibited by the amount that you can actually, receive as an entrepreneur. And so like it's kind of like a yin and yang kind of a thing. It's like, yeah, you can be a giver, but like you also have to be willing to accept and appreciate the feedback that you're getting from people. So I think that's what it trained me at an early, being in those rooms. So hopefully that kind of answered what you were talking about, but I think that was like the biggest thing that I got from being in those rooms.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I've definitely been learning a ton about receiving in the last 6 months or so. It's definitely for me, it wasn't the natural thing. And I think you're right. I think like we get so focused on accomplishing and learning and growing and pushing forward, which are all good things, that we sometimes forget to balance it out with just as much we need to receive. And that also is, a part of all the amazing things that we can receive in life, and everything that we can learn as entrepreneurs is as much receiving as it is going out and trying to conquer the next big thing. So that's definitely been a big lesson.
People love giving. People really do. And like, I think that you feel like you can't, like you are robbing somebody of their happiness. Cause it's like, I know you, Gabe, like when somebody reaches out to you and said how much you help them, and like, or if you have a client that gives you this kind of feedback, like that was you giving. And so people feel that way when they're able to contribute, but like you have to allow them to do that and accept it in a good way,
Yeah, absolutely. So you grow up selling rocks and then networking with older entrepreneurs, and also that's the first time I've heard somebody selling rocks.
I don't know if I got that.
But I had one of those tumblers too, but I wasn't selling the rocks. Maybe I was missing out. But so and then kind of catch us up from being, a teenager, having amazing parents, which is so cool that they would let you go do things outside of school, which I think is huge. Tell us a little bit more about your story and kind of what's led you to where you are today.
Yeah. So let's skip forward. Let's skip forward from 16 to my senior year of college. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was an entrepreneurship major. They had it available at my university, but I didn't have a business that was going and ready to sustain me by the time I graduated. And so I used these connection skills that I had been developing over the years since I was 16 or even younger than that. And I reached out to an entrepreneur. His name was Jonathan. And I basically reached out to him and I said, hey, I really, really love what you're doing and I really want to help support that. I can kind of go into that later, but that turned into a relationship of 3 years where I was running his marketing. I helped add over 100,000 students to his online courses, 1.5 million downloads to his podcast, was running his YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff. And on top of it, Jonathan got into Genius Network, which if you're listening right now, you don't know what Genius Network is. It's a high-end mastermind. It costs $25,000 a year to be in it. You need to be making at least 7 figures to be in the group. And so Jonathan got accepted into Genius Network. And then he said, I want Brandon to come to Genius Network as well. And so again, I found myself I was 22. I was the youngest person in Genius Network at 22. Now at people that were, multi-millionaires, insanely, the world's most successful people are in that room. And so I got to learn from, again, that next level of experience. And so anyways, there's 2 main reasons that kind of tie the story from the beginning to this point that we're at right now. One is I learned the power of what one connection can really do for you. Jonathan, connecting with him was insanely valuable for me. When I was 16, I had a mentor that helped me with that first fundraising that I kind of alluded to and opened me up to having those conversations. So if you're listening to this right now, I truly believe that at any given point in time, there's really usually one conversation, one connection with somebody that can really help you get to that next level. And so like that's a huge takeaway. The other thing that I realized being in Genius Network, and as a kid that grew up on the free lunch program, I thought that lots of my problems would be solved by having money, right? And so here I am catapulted at 22, with some of these multi gazillionaires changing the world and all that stuff. And I realized through meeting some people, and maybe Gabe, you have some stories as well, that like money does not equal happiness. It really doesn't. And so I saw these people that were insanely successful, but on the inside, there was like, they wanted so much more. And so that's why I created 7-Figure Millennials. And the idea behind that is to inspire millennial entrepreneurs to prioritize, keyword prioritize, their happiness, health, and relationships while making their biggest entrepreneurial dreams a reality. Because at the end of the day, I believe that you don't want a successful business. You want a business that brings you the lifestyle and the impact that you can actually make. So, figuring out what the happiness, health, and relationships component, because you can grow this successful business, but if it makes you miserable, what the hell is the point? So that's why I created 7-Figure Millennials. I'm on my own journey to 7 figures right now. And so I'm interviewing people and sharing what's working along the way. So that kind of brings me to where I am today is the Magic Connection Method, 7-Figure Millennials. And I ended up leaving Jonathan's company. This is all recent. I left Jonathan's company in May 2020. So I've been at this for, I jumped ship in the middle of COVID just to make it a little bit more fun.
Great time to change. That's
Yeah,
for
right.
sure. It was the year of change for a lot of people. And yeah, that's awesome. And it's really interesting that I think exposure to highly successful people financially gives you a lot of perspective, and it definitely helps you to get that when you're young. Because I experienced a lot too, like worked for billionaires and multimillionaires and like people that you would think they didn't have a care in the world, and then you start to see there's a lot more than money. But you also get to pick up like how did they make the money or how did they get there, and like I love your focus, because like what else is missing, like what do we need to actually be whole and healthy. And I have huge financial goals, and I will continue to pursue those. However, I realize that I'm not going to sacrifice my relationships or my happiness or my health to get there. And I think that you can achieve both if you pay attention and focus in on the right thing. So I love the message and the focus that you have.
Thank you. And and maybe I'll validate this as I move forward more, but I truly believe that if you are in alignment with what truly makes you happy, it actually helps you hit the financial goals even more. Actually, I think I listened to your interview that you did with Vinny Fisher, and I think you had mentioned you read a book called Leading with Soul. I think that, and I don't remember. I've never read the book. I just heard you mention it, but like if I remember correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because I didn't read the book, that it was like connecting to the core of what you do and what you're passionate about. That's like the key of leadership and many other things. But I think that's so true that the happiness, health, and relationships, people view it as like, oh, I have to prioritize this and this is going to fall. But my philosophy is that I think if you are in alignment and if you are focused on the right things, that they're actually not one or the other, they're supplementary.
Yeah. And I grew up, very poor and in a different position where my parents were really unavailable at that time. And so, being an entrepreneur and being a father, it's like, yeah, I do very well and really grateful and really blessed financially. And I'm sure I'm going to hit my targets. And like every year it's crazy. I look at my intention for the year and we do great numbers wise, but that is irrelevant and inconsequential compared to spending time with my son. Like there's nothing more important than that. And spending time with my partner, Rachel, it's like, there's nothing, all the money in the world would never, replace having time with my son. And so I wish that everybody realized that early on in their entrepreneurial career, because there's no late nights or long weekends or 80, 100-hour weeks or whatever we think we can pull off that will ever bring back the time we have with our family. It's like, it's gone.
Yeah. And this may be a big statement, but like part of what I'm focused on and what my mission is, I want to change the global conversation around what success means for this generation of entrepreneurs. Cause I really don't think you can point at someone and say they're successful when they have just the toys, like that. I think that the equation of success needs to include more than what society believes to say, oh, they're successful, so like that's part of why I'm so excited about this, why I have the podcast where I'm sharing this message is because, I think there are many other metrics that we need to be looking at that people just don't pay attention to.
Yeah. And we've mentioned it a couple of times, but I do want to just really give a big shout out to, Jules and Kevin who started Tribe for Leaders, because that's how we're connected and how I've had really developed some amazing relationships. And I remember like 6 weeks ago now, I think, I was sitting with Kevin and we were talking about different projects we'd done and things he'd done over the years. And I was just asking him some questions. And he said, I don't have the whole context right, but the message that stood out to me is he's like, what really matters is how you make people feel. And I realized that you can't lead and grow your team. You can't lead and serve your family and your loved ones and those you care about unless you're truly present and conscious of how you're making them feel. And if your head's in your work or in other areas you're stressed about something else, or you think that pushing harder is going to change anything, all it's going to do is make you feel disconnected from the people that need the connection the most, and need to really feel your presence, like you being fully in the conversation, fully in the moment. And I will never, forget that moment with Kevin, because it reminded me of like, that's how I want to show up. And it's something I need to work on improving. There's times I'm distracted. There's times I'm not paying attention like I should. And usually it's inconsequential stuff compared to being present with the person that I'm actually with or the team that I'm with. Yeah. So I love the focus. So that's excellent.
Thank you. Yeah. And Kevin's a great human. It's funny because when I got to my first Genius Network meeting, Kevin sat on my right and Benjamin Hardy was on my left. So Kevin was like one of the very first people that I met in Genius. And I'm just so grateful that I've been connected with him, because he is a wonderful human.
Absolutely. So talk to us about, this magic, connection method that you have. I'm really interested to hear what that is and how you teach it and what it's been for you in your life.
Yeah. Really appreciate that. So when I was working with Jonathan, right out of college, I had the opportunity to run his email list with over 100,000 students on it. And so when I say I've sent millions of emails, it's not that hard to say you've sent millions of emails when you have 100,000 at a time. So I was running on that. And then, in combination with the stuff I was learning when I was 16. So long story short, I've been working with emails for a really, really long time. And so maybe Gabe, you can coach me because I know you're the pro here. I've been trying to get better at articulating what the magic connection method really is, because I've been trying to figure out a way to make sure that it just clicks for people. And the closest I can get right now is that most people understand what a cold email is, right? And the logic makes sense, right? That instead of doing a webinar, instead of doing a lead magnet, all this stuff, like you can reach out to people directly and initiate a conversation. But you and I both know that our LinkedIn inboxes, our email inboxes are filled with people that think that they're brilliant and they can kind of create a customized quote unquote message that just mashes a bunch of variables together. And like, I read those and like, I just want to shower. Like, it pushes me so far away from somebody. And so the question is like, how can us as entrepreneurs that are heart-centered, that want to actually connect with people, how can we leverage the power of actually reaching out to somebody, but do it in an authentic way that makes them build trust, that makes them lean in? And so the closest I can get to what a magic connection method email is, or this process that I'm going to teach, is it's the equivalent of kind of getting a warm introduction. But the thing is that the way you outreach, it doesn't require a warm introduction, but it's got that same feeling to it, if that makes sense, that it's a building trust and reciprocity. So this magic connection method is a process I use. It's 3 steps, and it's designed to get people to lean in and open the doors to powerful relationships. And in the context that I'm using it in emails, I've had campaigns that get 90% open rates with up to 60% reply rate, 60, not 16. And so, and this is the power of this, is to opening the doors to these conversations. So it's 3 parts. I can dive right in unless you want to kind of have anything before I go into the 3 steps.
No, go for it. Absolutely.
Okay. So the whole goal of this magic connection method email is simply to get them to respond. That's it. I find that so many people, when they try to reach out to somebody, they'll try to say, hey, book a call on my calendar. Here's the link, or go check out blah, 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 blah. We just want to see if somebody's interested in leaning in and having a conversation for us right now. So that's the preface here. So there's 3 parts to it: the hook, the irresistible offer, and the no-oriented question. So the first part is the hook that we'll dive right into. And the number one mistake that I see people make when they reach out to someone is they make it 100% about them, the person that's reaching out, right? So you'll see these messages and it's like, hi, my name is Brendan Fong and I'm the blah, blah, blah host of blah, blah, blah. I've done XYZ. Look how badass and awesome I am, like, pay attention to me. And like, you receive those messages on LinkedIn and like, you don't care yet. There's no reason for you to care yet. You haven't given them a reason to care yet. And so our goal with the magic connection method process, this hook, is to do the exact opposite. It's 100% about the person that we're reaching out to. And so there are better and worse ways that you can do inside of a hook, but like the best is if you have a mutual connection that you can share, that like, hey, I saw that you were on this podcast and I was on that podcast as well, so if you can mention a mutual connection in the hook. But besides that, can you give them a genuine compliment? Have you gotten results from their advice? Are you listening to this podcast with Gabe and Gabe shared something incredible with you? And it's like, hey, Gabe, I listened to episode number 143 with this guest and you shared X, Y, and Z. I implemented it. This is the results I got. Thank you so much. Like, that's kind of what we're looking at getting here, is like either a connection, a compliment, something along those lines, just showing that we took the time to research them and we genuinely care about them. The one asterisk I'll put on this is that this is like 1 to 3 sentences max. There's something that I call the stalker line. You don't want to send a message where you write them a book, because everybody listening to this, Gabe, myself, I've received those messages where it's like somebody wrote a paragraph and it's like, okay, that's creepy. So we're not crossing that line. 1 to 3 sentences, show that you took the time to research them, that you care about them, that you value them. And that's the part of the hook. So now we've set ourselves apart from everybody else that literally just copied and pasted the same message and didn't care, and that we're opening the doors to a right relationship. After the hook, the next part we move into is the irresistible offer component. And so I'll usually say something, we'll use the podcasting as an example. So, hey, Gabe, listen to podcast 179, loved it, specifically liked X, Y, and Z. Thank you so much for sharing that. Besides wanting to tell that to you, I do have a quick question, and that moves into the next part, is the irresistible offer. And so right now, I want to explain really quickly the difference between an offer and an irresistible offer. And again, Gabe, you can critique. I'm open for feedback on this stuff too. It's why I love doing these podcasts, because it's like I hear insights from podcast hosts and experienced marketers like yourself. So if you want to add on to this, go ahead. But there's a huge difference from what I've learned from an offer and an irresistible offer. And one of my favorite quotes is by Dean Jackson: a compelling offer is 10 times more powerful than a convincing argument. So instead of trying to push someone something, how can you create an offer that's so irresistible that instead they want to lean in, they want to hear more about it? And if you're listening to this, another example that I like giving that I actually think I heard from Dan Cashel initially, that I just love this example is Gabe, have you seen those ads? I'm sure you have, of the mattress companies that sell mattresses online.
Mm-hmm.
So I love this as an example for an irresistible offer, because like, look at the previous offer. The previous model is that you step into a department store fully clothed in your jacket with your shoes on, and you lie on this bed and you try it out. You try to get comfy and figure out if you're going to spend a few $1,000s on this bed and if you're going to sleep, you know, the majority of your life on this thing. That's option one. The irresistible offer that these mattress companies have created that are selling online, it's like, hey, take our quiz. We will ship you the bed. You can try it out for 100 nights, whether you're sleeping in naked or in your pajamas or however it is. Get cozy and comfy in your bed. If you like it, then keep it. If you don't like it, send it back. No harm. So like that's you know, irresistible offer. That's the level that we're looking at getting at here. So some keys to create an irresistible offer in this email that we're sending is that we want to make it so that it minimizes risk. It positions it so that they have a lot to gain, and makes it easy so that they can say yes to it. So the first irresistible offer I ever sent, going back to when I connected with Jonathan, was, hey, I've done a whole bunch of research on your brand. I've been, you know, on your email list, going through your products and services, been taking meticulous notes. There are 3 specific things that I identified that I think could be helping you a lot. You know, would you be opposed to me sending those over for you to check out, or something along those lines? I don't remember exactly. But the idea is that whatever the irresistible offer is that you can craft for them or create them, what is the smallest taste that you can give them that they can tangibly grab? So it's like, it's 3 ideas. It's like a specific strategy they can use, whatever it is that they can say yes to it. And so that's the irresistible offer component. I know I've been going for a while. Anything you want to add or clarify on there, Gabe?
No, I love it. I think you're right on point, and this is great. So I like where you're going. So keep at it.
Okay, cool. So we're on the home stretch. Last part is the note-oriented question. Remember from the beginning, the whole goal of this is simply to get them to respond. That's it. We want them to lean in. We're not trying to get them to book a call or anything like this. So at this point, we've shown that we care about them. We have something irresistible that we can offer them. The last part is just to close the deal and get them to respond to us. So what I used to do is ask yes-oriented questions, where it's like, do you want me to send this over for you to check out? You know, whatever it is. And those can work. I'm not saying that won't work. But then I read the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, and one of my favorite books on negotiation. But for those of you listening that don't know who Never Split the Difference is, or Chris Voss is, Chris was an ex-FBI hostage negotiator. So this is the dude that is on the phone with a lunatic that's in the bottom of a basement of a bank with 10 hostages and a few $1 million, and he's about to blow up the whole place. What do you say as the dude on the phone to try to make him not do that, right? And so the book goes into a whole bunch of negotiation strategies, but one of my favorite things that I learned is this concept of a no-oriented question. And the way that I like to explain a no-oriented question is to explain, is just to say that every single day we have a finite amount of yeses that we can give, right? Because every single time you say yes to something, what does that mean? It means that you're giving away your time, you're giving away your money, you're giving away your energy. You are giving something away when you say yes to something. But compare that with the exact opposite. Saying no makes you feel in control. Saying no makes you feel secure. It makes you feel safe, right? And to think about it even more, let's think about this in the context of the emails that we're in someone's email inbox. Their mode is to say no to things right now. They're deleting things, they're archiving things. And so that's the mode that they're in. So anyways, going back to the no-oriented question, a no-oriented question is simply taking something that would be a yes-oriented question and flipping it. So instead of saying, you know, can I send this Google Doc with these ideas for you to check out, is would it be a bad idea if I sent these 3 ideas for you to check out? Something along those lines. And if you want to get super ninja with it, one of the things you can add is, this is a study, I think it came from the book Hooked by Nir Eyal. I was reading it, and they did this study on like compliance and getting people to give you money to go on a bus ticket or a train. I don't remember what it is, but like the key words that they added to that got people to donate more money is, but you are free to choose. So you can add in the beginning, reminding people of the choice is 100% up to you, but would it be a bad idea if I sent this Google Doc over for you to check out? Question mark, nothing after that. That's it. So now look at it from the skimmer's perspective. They're skimming it. They see they care about you. They see you have something, to offer. They get to the end. There's a question, and all they have to do to respond to this email is to say, no, it's not a bad idea. It's literally a sentence. There's no thinking on their part. They don't have to process it, because I was on a podcast the other day with somebody that teaches an email course. And she's like, think about the emails that have been sitting in your inbox that you haven't responded for forever. It's because they were complex, right? You had to think about what to say, how to say it, what but we have that in mind. And now it's just, we've shown that we care about them, and it ends with a question mark, and that's it. And now they can respond to it and engage with it and lean in from the conversation. So that's it. The hook, irresistible offer, no oriented question, opens the doors to these relationships, shows that you genuinely care. And you can leverage this to acquire clients. You can leverage this to reach out to strategic partnerships. Even if you're looking at getting a mentor, if you want to connect with somebody, like, this is so powerful, and it's something that I've tested for so long. And again, if you commit to like sending these, I guarantee your life will change, because it's totally changed mine.
I love it, man. That's excellent. And you've definitely mastered a lot of what people want to master as copywriters. You've mastered it. And I like the no oriented question a lot, because I've read Never Split the Difference a couple times as well. But that part didn't stand out to me. And I always like talking to people about that book, because there's different pieces that stand out, and they're like, oh, this is the piece or the takeaway for me. But the other part that I really like about that is, not only are you remaining in control, which I like, which is the psychology of it, but you're also doing a takeaway. And like, you're creating an irresistible offer, but you're doing a takeaway, and takeaways are some of the strongest positioning you can do, where you say, hey, I've got this amazing stuff, love to help you out, but hey, if it's not a good fit for you, no big deal. That's kind of like how I heard what you were saying. And then, oh, no, I want that. Like, people, it's better to be chased than to chase somebody else, right? And so, man, I think it's rock solid. And over the years, I've without thinking about it or creating a formula the way you have, I've done those outreaches that have just worked, and like, you connect, and you can instantly get to the top of whatever network you want to be in, or whatever relationships you want to find. The other thing that I always point out to people is, when you're doing outreach like that, those people are not as busy as you may think they are, or they're not as inaccessible as you may think they are. Nobody's just taken the time to actually pay attention, like you're explaining, like, to really pay attention to where they're at, or what you might be able to, add value to their life or solve a problem for them. Anytime I've reached out and said, hey, I can solve that problem for you, I've instantly landed the relationship, or the job, or the project, or the client. And it's definitely a brilliant approach. And also, I'll say too, because I've done millions of cold emails over the years, that I think it's important to realize too, that as you go through your entrepreneurial journey, like, you're going to go through different seasons where you try different things and you learn different things. And there's seasons for things that work, and then there's seasons to shift and change and do something different, because it's not, I've moved away from saying things are wrong or right to saying what's effective, what's ineffective.
Blair Dunkley stuff.
From Blair, I was just going to say from him. And that's really helped me view things as saying, okay, well, what's working, what's not working. And also to be aware that for some people, one approach works great and that's effortless for them. And then for others, there's other approaches. But I love what you're teaching, and it's definitely a very effective way to reach out. I've experienced that in my own life, and I love, hearing about what you've accomplished with it.
Thank you.
So I think, I don't know, I think you explained it well. I don't think there's anything that like stands out to me that I'd be like, oh, recraft this or change it.
Awesome.
But I guess the only other thing I would add to it, I guess, is, and you've explained this already, but to kind of restate it, or maybe even say it in a different way, is that the intention behind how you reach out is as important as the words you use. And I always, share with people, like, you can tell, like, when somebody on your team, or your, girlfriend or wife or partner, whoever, texts you and they're mad, and when they text you and they're happy, and they could send the exact same words, because there's energy and intention behind that stuff. And so if you truly are trying to reach out and serve and help somebody, then the response rate's going to go up regardless of how you craft it, it's going to improve based on that. But then when you really layer in excellence in communication and a really strong strategy that is serving them, then, you know, I'm not surprised that you get such massive response rates, because your heart's in the right place and you're doing it the right way. It's the perfect combination.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And also, just to add even more value to your listeners, another thing I want to make sure I explain is that when I say I get a 90% open and a 60% reply on some campaigns, there's also some follow-ups involved. So like I'm replying to those same messages because some people aren't going to respond. I've found, maybe I'll prove this around as I scale this out a little bit more, but the majority of the responses come from the first 1 to 3 follow-ups. Beyond that, it kind of like is not as effective. But just letting you know, if you're listening to this, that there might be a lot left on the table if you're not following up. The first message that I usually send as a follow-up is like, you know, hey Gabe, just bumping this to the top of your inbox. I hope you have a fantastic day. So like nothing, the first email that you spent so much time, energy, and effort crafting, you don't have to add much more to that. It's simply just calling their attention back to it. And then I'll just say one more follow-up I'll send after that. Is a good thing to ask is this is where I toss in more no-oriented questions. Is like I'll be like, hey Gabe, you must be super busy right now. Are you not the right person to talk to about this? Now think about that no-oriented question, because it's either Gabe receives that and he's like, no, I am the right person, I'm going to respond to it, or, you know, you're right, I'm actually not the right person to talk about this. Let me introduce you to somebody else. So there's so many layers to this that you can play with adding more psychology and that kind of stuff. But it ties back to the very beginning of all the stuff of learning how to connect with people. It's just been something that's helped me so much. And so I'm just excited about sharing this with people and helping people leverage it inside of their businesses.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. This has been incredibly valuable. And what type of folks are you looking to work with, and where can people connect with you?
So best way is to check out the 7-Figure Millennials podcast. The kind of people that I'm looking at working with are heart-centered entrepreneurs, high, 7-figure plus. As far as me helping implement the Magic Connection method, you don't have to be a 7-figure entrepreneur to send these kinds of things. But I'll just blanket say, if you're somebody that is interested in prioritizing their happiness, health, and relationships while making your entrepreneurial dreams a reality, that's in and of itself, I think it encompasses the kind of people that I would love to work with. And if you want to check out the 7-Figure Millennials podcast, bringing on incredible people and sharing what's working with me along my journey as well. And I'm getting lots of the guests and the connections because of the Magic Connection method. So it all works.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brandon, for sharing this. And we'll definitely have you back soon to see where you're at. And everybody can reach out to Brandon. We'll put his links and everything in the show notes and here on Facebook as well.
Yeah. I have one more thing I should have asked in the beginning, but I did put together a gift for your audience. Is that okay, Gabe? As we can edit this out, that's fine too. So if I have the short link Fong, because my name is Brandon Fong. So I bought the domain from Nigeria. So in case you've never seen a link like this, that's why. So it's bfo.ng/leader. And one of the things I thought that would be most valuable for your audience is, well, I've written so many of these Magic Connection Method emails. What if I just went ahead and wrote some Magic Connection Method emails for you that you can kind of use as a basis? So those are instantly available that you can copy and paste. There's no upsells or anything crazy on here. Just grab it. There's some free training, some free resources on you there. So bfo.ng/leader, that'll take you there. And then if you do want to get the Magic Connection Method, that's at magicconnectionmethod.com. It's not really a book. It's more of like a workbook that explains the kind of this whole thing. And if you use the coupon code 7FM at checkout, that's what I give to my audience, I unlock a whole bunch of extra bonuses on there as well. So those are some other ways I can give to your audience and get them to use the Magic Connection Method, because that's what's the most important, is that you send these.
Awesome. What was the last URL for the Magic Connection where they can get that?
Magicconnectionmethod.com. And then use the coupon code 7FM for 7-Figure Millennials, and that'll get the extra bonuses. It's a $7 book. There's nothing crazy on there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. And again, we'll have you back soon. Thanks for sharing all of this, all the value, and just sharing your story with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gabe. It's been a blast.
This show is brought to you by Today's Business Leaders. Learn more at our website, todaysbusinessleaders.com. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify today.